Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Animal Kingdom. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously, we have Pope in prison, and he's on a very self-destructive path. The fact of the matter is, the rest of the family got him protection, but he won't take it because he believes this is what he deserves. A lot of what Thompson said, Detective Thompson, got in his head. Like, it's not right, because if he ends up even saying this to Darren. He's like, if he goes to trial, Amy's going to get dragged into it as an accessory, so that's why they kind of forced her hand. And Lena, he doesn't want Lena to have to see what happened to her mom. Like, you know, all the stuff that's probably running through her mind is one thing, but seeing it is a completely other thing. And he doesn't want to do that to her because legitimately he cares about Lena, and that's why he kind of let her go, was because it's like, right, she was happy, she was with the family, she's away from all of this. But also I think, like, Pope has a lot of built up guilt over a lot of stuff that he did, and it's like, for him, it's like, right, I went on living my life, and I think living his life just makes him feel even more guilty. The problem is that Pope is so caught up in his own self-hatred, he doesn't think about the ramifications of what this means for the rest of his family, because the dominoes just keep falling. Because they're seen as weak now, because, right, they were seen as weak because they didn't have Smurf around anymore. They quickly fixed that shit, but then now it's like, right, they're without Pope now too, and now it makes him look even weaker. So they have to contend with that now too. Like, and each one, Jay, Darren, and Cray are kind of dealing with everything on top of this too. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this whole situation. But to be fair, it's like, once again, Pope's not all there mentally. Like, there's stuff wrong. Like, it has been for a long time, but his mom never did anything, because she's like, no, you're perfectly fine. Because I don't know whether it made him more malleable, made him more controllable, whatever the case may be. She never wanted him to talk to anybody about what's going on. And now it's like all these years of stuff pent up. I mean, plus he was already in prison too, so that doesn't help. And he doesn't want to be around the people who are trying to protect him, because he's like, oh, they're too noisy. But like, Darren's like, yeah, like, he's talking about noise when there's not that much noise in the prison. It's just because he's acting like it's the prison itself. It's his own consciousness eating away at him, his own guilt. He can't quiet the voices in his head anymore just because they're eating away at him. So, to the point, he ends up getting stabbed later on in the episode, and he kind of, like, he's wild. Like, he's not thinking clearly, he's not thinking at all, he's just kind of moving on instinct. The fact of the matter is, the guys were like, yo, there's gonna be a time and a place, let us handle that guy who is part of why you got stabbed. Pope didn't want to listen. At first I was like, I guess it seems like getting the solitary confinement was what he wanted in the first place, because he's like, almost like, yeah, it's quiet. But it's almost like this sad satisfaction where there's a part of him that's happy. He's like, oh, it's quiet. But then there's almost like the reality of it kind of sitting in, like, oh. Plus, he was forced to take medication, which is what Jay's worried about in the first place. Is like, if he gets heavily medicated, he could end up saying anything, you know? Which Darren's like, no, Pope wouldn't talk. Yeah, but it's like, once again, he shouldn't have confessed in the first place, but he did. So, like, we can't really trust Pope. He's not really himself right now. And he doesn't want anything to happen to Amy. And Darren's like, we can make the Amy situation. It's like, no. Like, because for him, it's like, this is someone he cares about. Plus, in his mind, it's like, right, after the conversation he had with Amy, it's more so like, nah, he doesn't blame Amy. He blames the detective for, like, putting Amy in that position. If anything, he blames himself. It's like, right, she wouldn't be in this position if I hadn't killed Catherine, if I hadn't, like, detailed everything, if I hadn't basically made her have to keep that for years upon years. Like, that's on me too. So, like, any situation she's going through is on me. And once again, everyone's got their different perspectives on this situation. I mean, Darren has to deal with the fact is, obviously, he fired Tommy, which Tommy's like, yo, I get you, what you're going through right now. But he says, the fact is, Pope being, like, obviously the words out about him killing Kat, the fact of the matter is, it's now reopened other questions that were already buried, but they were never really buried. They were always rummagings about the Adrian thing. We as the audience know Adrian's alive. We know Adrian's sister knows he's alive. She was sending him money, was it last season? So we know that, but generally everyone's still under the speculation, like, yo, most likely Darren killed him because we haven't heard from Adrian forever. He just up and disappeared. So yeah, most people think that. And now it's like those questions are rummaging again and people are angry about it. So they've got that to deal with. They got to deal with Pete. Like, you know, they're pissed about everything. You know, Tina even made it clear, like, yo, like, this is about respect. And it's like, yo, like, you know what it takes. Like, you can't buy or pay for respect. So, you know, for what happened to Pete, it's like, and we're not the only ones coming after you. You weak ass Cody's like, everyone's coming for your jugular now. It's like, yeah, you had Smurf. All right, she was gone, but you had Pope. Everyone knew not to fuck with Pope. Pope's the crazy one, and it's like, yeah, like your mom had Pope reined in, and obviously without your mom, Pope went buck wild, and now it's like, nah, all the cards off the fucking table, like it's do or die here, like, you know, and it's not just Pope that's like whose head they want on a swivel. I think they probably want the rest of the Codys too, so they got to deal with, like, Darren's got to deal with all that. He's the one trying to take charge. Jay is up here manipulating the situation to try and get things the way he wants them to, because he's the one setting up the protection and stuff like that with the guy. But it's like, yeah, your uncle doesn't want it. If anything, he kind of wants to die. And just, Jay sees Pope more of a hindrance than the rest, because, once again, this is his uncle. Like, it's not the same thing. He went most of his life never knowing Pope. I mean, Pope was probably, like, I actually don't remember how long Pope was locked up. Obviously, Pope got out, like, after Julia died. But it's like, considering everything there, like, there's that complication, because it's like, right, this is your mom's twin and everything, but he wasn't really in your life. You don't really, like, none of your uncles or your grandmother were really into your life until your mom died. Once again, whether that's 100% by their design, I don't know if they've ever said specifically, maybe they have. And even if they hadn't, like, my thing has always been, like, that was most likely Julia's decision to want nothing to do with her family. I'm sure she was probably honestly waiting for her mom to croak to potentially, like, remedy some of that to some extent. I don't know. Either way, putting all that aside, but like I said, Jay's making his own moves, that the guys who are meant to protect Pope, he's like, how much would it take, like, you know, a more permanent solution? So it's like, yo, you're willing to have your uncle murdered, because, and even later on saying, like, yo, we could do this thing without Pope, like, you know, because for Jay, he did so much to get to where we are. It makes sense, too. He came from nothing with him and his mom. He came from nothing, and now he's built this empire. Like, he's literally, and probably from his perspective, it's like, I'm the one who built this bitch. I'm the one that took over for Smurf. I'm the one that built this. I'm the reason why we have what we have. He's the one that diversifies the money. He's the one that puts it in these properties. He's the money guy. He's the brains of the operation. It's like, yeah, you guys might be older than me, but I'm the one with the keys to the castle. I'm the one that built all of this. And you're telling me, oh, we should just abandon this for Pope? Fuck that. You know, it's like, ooh, that power, it tastes too good. I mean, he's been flexing and feeling himself. It's like, yo, the whole thing between him and Penny, like, come on, you can't tell me that's not someone getting a little egotistical that's like, yo, actively being in a relationship with someone you know is married, and it seems like, because I think for him, it's like, yo, I don't give a shit, like, you know, trying to get her as far away from, like, her sister, like, because it comes down to what he wants. It doesn't matter what other people want. No, what I want, you know? Is it even about Penny's happiness? It's like, no, it's about my happiness, because I want to be with you, and that's kind of all that matters. I mean, maybe in his head, it's like, no, she wants to be with me too, but I'm like, Jay's pretty self-centered. Like, he's always been about the power, and, you know, once again, for when you have nothing and you grow up and be in a position to have this type of power, type of reach, this type of money, this type of operation, of course, you know, it's going to go to your head, and like, he doesn't want to jeopardize that, especially for Pope, who Pope can jeopardize everything. Because it's like, right, we could all end up going to jail over this. So that's Jay's side of things. Then there's Craig's side of things, because he's spiraling too. He even made sure to give some money to, like, Darren, like, oh, put this in the commentary. And he's like, no, we already got some money. He's like, well, then add this to it, because he doesn't want to just sit on the sidelines while his brother's locked up. Because, I mean, for such a long time, it's always been them. Like, yeah, him and Craig and Darren might be the youngest, but it's still like, yo, like, that's one of our big bros, you know? And despite everything, now also knowing, like, right, our mom is the reason he killed Kat, like, you know, and it's like, right, we got to do something about it. This is our brother, you know, and I even love the juxtaposition of that line of, this is the family business, with, like, yeah, like, Julia, Andrew, and, Smurf, which we'll get to in a little bit, but like once again, like Craig's dealing with all that. Like he wants to help, and he doesn't know what to do. He's obviously his own personal family situation with the whole Ren and Nick situation, because it's like, yeah, she wants to move. Was it to San Antonio? She wants to move to Texas, but he's not the biggest fan of Texas or Texans. So there's that element to it. Plus, there's everything with Vince, because his own sobriety and stuff. And Vince, like, let's get in a boxing match. And it's like, I'll put $100,000 on myself. Nothing's going to be more sobering than an ass whooping. So they duke it out. But like Craig, like partway through the fight, it's just like, yeah, like that animal and all of them kind of comes out, and he's like, the bell rung, but he's like, man, fuck the bell, and keeps going. And Vince didn't hold anything against him, but it's like, right, he wants Craig to find a different path, because he's like, the only thing at the end of that path is death, Because for Craig, it's like he's got a family, to kind of worry about, both fronts, his brothers, but also Ren and Nick, and he's trying to, because the whole original plan wasn't just immediately for him to move out there with them. That it's like, right, he'll, like every couple months he'll go stop by, then every once in a while she'll come back to Oceanside to visit family and stuff. But that seems like the only situation, because it does seem like the way they talk about it, because Darren was like, it's been weeks because Craig hasn't gone to see Pope. So it seems like, right, it's been a couple weeks in between episodes. And I'm curious if we're going to get any more of Detective Thompson in the next couple episodes. I mean, we only got like 3 episodes left, so a lot can happen in that regard. But just the Codys in general are spiraling, dude. Once again, it's just like after Smurf died, they were spiraling then. It's not the same thing, but it could be. Because now it's like, right, the big concern was like, yeah, Pope's not going to survive in prison. Not just because, like, they might medicate him, or they might have him, he might get killed in prison. Like, there are plenty of people that can get to him, because they're not together. The Codys aren't united. I mean, they ripped through their cousins, but that's because they had each other's back during that time, which is now ironic that, like, now Jay is all about, like, no, we gotta, I guess it's also like, right, he was the one that pulled the trigger on Smurf, so who's to say he ain't gonna pull the trigger on, Poe? And if the uncles all find out about that, they're not gonna be too happy about it. Granted, Jay was like, you and me are we're gonna keep this between us, but also you don't pull the trigger until I tell you to. So we'll see if that's a thing. But I'm like, I got that look. I'm worried about Jay, because he's that look at the end where they're like, right, we're gonna break him out of prison, because once again, this is a family business. We don't do this without Pope. But it's like, right, we do something big like this, there's no coming back. We can't work in Oceanside anymore. We basically will be on the run for the rest of our lives. And for Jay, it means, once again, giving up everything. And it's like, no, our entire empire is like, we can find someone else, like train someone up. It's like, no, this is the family business. Like, Pope would do it for us. And Jay's just kind of like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't, like, once again, like, yeah, he's your brother and everything, but you guys are family, sure, but like, Jay's kind of got that look like, I will fucking toss you aside if I need to. And I think maybe that's a little bit of his mom and just her issues with the family coming up, somewhere in his DNA that's ingrained. Maybe there's also a little bit of Smurf. I mean, to be fair, Smurf would bend over backwards for Pope. I mean, to be fair, Pope was kind of her go-to for things, so it's not too much of a surprise, but still. I legitimately don't know how that's going to play out. Especially with everything in the past. Well, not especially, but with everything in the past. Julia did take like an SAT, and she was actually kind of happy about her score. And then her and Pope kind of end up working through their awkwardness. It's that tear them down so you can build them back up type of situation. With Smurf doing that with Julia and Andrew. It's like, right, go with Pope to get the wiring, it's the copper wiring or whatever. It's not even copper wire. It's the stuff she was talking to, like, was it Reggie, like, last episode about or whatever. But yeah, sends them off, and things are still awkward between them. But I even love that moment where Julia was like, right, that situation with you and that, like, person that Smurf set you up with, she's like, that wasn't right. Like, it's not supposed to be like that. That was a transaction. It's like, yeah, like, especially your first time, it should be with someone you love. I mean, obviously everyone has their different philosophies about it. Sometimes it's like, it doesn't have to be love. It could just be like, yeah, toss it out of the way. But also, it should be with someone that you care about. It should be some meaning behind it, not just a transaction that your mother paid for. Once again, whole complicated slew of issues in that. But she's talking to him, and it's just like, it did seem like they were able to kind of bridge that gap. And obviously he didn't say anything when Julia skimmed a little off the top of the payment. But then notice that, because like Smurf went off with VIDS and brought a whole bunch of girls over, and it's like, that's kind of, once again, another slight to your daughter. To be fair, I guess it's like, right, everything between them is over anyway. Even though VIDS was trying to be like, yo, you can always come over to my place. Didn't take him long, because like, it's also like, right, you did that for Pope, now you're doing it for VIDS just to try and help him move along, but then you find out, oh, he's already got someone here. And I also think it's kind of wild that, and maybe on some level it's Smurf still trying to be like, oh, I'm young and hip. It feels weird that you're hanging around people VIDS's age and you're like getting high with them. I'm like, that, I mean, to be fair, like, I mean, shit, Craig was literally doing the same thing like last season. I mean, not necessarily probably, I mean, they look like they were probably teenagers, but they could be like late teens, early 20s. I don't know. It still seems weird, bro. And it's like she's doing the same thing, and then she goes off with one of them. Like, because she's asking like, oh, is everyone here of age? And then she laughs because she's like, it doesn't fucking matter. And then it's like you go potentially bang it out with one of the dudes. And like VIDS has such an issue with it. He's like starts sniffing like, you know, whatever, like Coke or whatever it is that she had laid out. And she was like, oh, everybody finished this all. And then like the girl he's with is just like, yeah, a beer would be nice. And I'm like, are you trying to fuck Smurf? Is that what this is about? Wait, is that, I was like, wait, is that what this, so it wasn't even the Pope in her? Is it VIDS in her that have that little twisted Oedipus thing going on? Like, cause like, she was almost, like, VIDS seemed super annoyed to see that she was off getting laid. I guess it's like, right, you come to my place, it's supposed to be mine, but you treat it like it's still yours, and you're like gonna bang someone in my house? I mean, for her, she's the one that paid for it and everything, but I don't know if that's what rubbed him the wrong way, or is it just because it's like, I don't know, it's like, oh, you got mad about me and Julia? I don't know. It's hard to say 100% like what's really at the core of all of this, but also part of me is like, is that why he's so annoyed? Is he, does he have, they have a weird relationship. Like like I said, I kept always putting it at Pope and Smurf, but I'm like, was it always a weird thing with Baz? I mean, to be fair, Baz is a young man, and it's just like her taking him in, and she's an older woman. Let's not mince words. Smurf is a beautiful woman, so it's like, all those mixtures of feelings of like, hey, you're a horny teenager, mixed with the fact is this person isn't your biological mom, because obviously you already had sex with someone that's not your biological sister. So it's like, would it be that much of a leap? It's still tiptoeing that Oedipus lane of things. Granted, she's not your biological mom. There's no blood relation there. So once again, the same thing with the Julia. I'm more okay with the Julia thing than the Smurf thing, because it seems there's even more layers of inappropriateness, which I feel like it's complicated, you know, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm reading too much into that. I say time and time again, it's just like, I always feel like Pope has such, I mean, not Pope, specifically Smurf, has such an unhealthy relationship with her kids, with her family in general. But I thought it was interesting that, like, when Pope and Julia came back, she's like, hey, I just want you to know, like, I do want you to go to college, study wherever you want to. I just want to make sure it's at the right time, okay? And it's like, would there have ever been a right time? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, we still don't know what eventually led to the full-blown fallout between Julia and Smurf. We probably won't know until the end of the episode. And once again, what's the juxtaposition going to be between her and, because everything between her and Pope, and now we have her, like, we have Jay and Pope, like, what that's going to, because I talked about it early on. My thought is, are any of the Codys going to survive this? You'd hope that maybe at very least they end up going like, right, we're going to do this one last thing. We all go our separate ways. I'm assuming Jay's going to try and like maybe continue all this. Or hell, for all we, like, I could definitely see this being a thing where the Codys like end up in a shootout or die at the end of all this. But it's like, well, the fact is Nick's got a kid. I don't see that, because like you'd want them all to be happy. It's like, I guess there's always a possibility Darren could always track down Adrian, but I'm like, after all this time, would that even, I mean, at first I was almost like, well, because I don't know what Tommy's situation is. I don't know if like him and Darren could end up being a thing. Well, he was dating, well, he scared that dude off like earlier in the season. I forgot about a couple episodes back when he beat the living crap out of that guy. But yeah, Craig's got a kid and Ren, so he's got something to like live for. Not less Jay. I get the feeling like, now with the way they set things up, I don't even think it's going to be Pope that's going to end up dead. I think it's going to end up being Jay or something, or maybe all four of them. I have no, like, this seems like that type of story where it's like, right, there's no way you're going to get away with all the terrible stuff. You guys are criminals. There's no way you're going to get away with everything you get. But then there's probably an argument of like, yeah, criminals get away with a lot of shit that they do on a daily basis. Talking even real world wise. So like, so we'll see. But like, I'm waiting for that juxtaposition. Like, there's still 3 episodes, and I feel like it's got to be like, right, the final episode has got to be Jay coming into this world just as he's leaving it, or something, or just as his family falls apart. Because I brought that up like with the season 5 finale. It was like, hey, the family repaired itself present day, just in the past. That Smurf bought the house in Oceanside, and it's like, right, this is her, Pope, and Julia moving in. But it's like, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. My mind goes in many different directions of how this can play out, and maybe it's just the pessimist I am. I'm leaning more towards like, this is probably going to have a depressing ass ending. I hope it doesn't, and maybe it'll just be the last time the Codys are ever able to be together. But if this is going to be it, if they are going to break Pope out of prison, which seems to be the main plan, it's like, we're going to find some weakness, we're going to find some way. Jay might try to handle that, because it's like, right, there's easier solutions. If he kills Amy, Pope will never forgive him. So, and that's a super big no. Doesn't want this to go to trial because of her and Lena. Once again, just on a self-destructive path. We'll just have to wait and see where the next episode takes us with all this. Like I said, only 3 episodes of the show left. Plenty of room for a lot of stuff to go down, for things to go good, but also plenty of room for things to go super bad and super sideways. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where it all takes us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.